Well, the season's over, but plenty of news affecting potentially Ipswich Town. We know who's going to be in the Championship playoff final. There's a certain couple of managerial vacancies that we may or may not have to talk about here. And we are going to have a look at the current squad depth and where we think things are going to go. Plus, we've had an hour from Mr. Mark Ashton to have a look at as well. All of this in your close season Blue Monday podcast. Nice little glitch to start the show as well. Joe, a little bit of Mark Ashton goes a long way. 60 minutes of Mark Ashton goes a very, very long way. Obviously, big shout out to our man, Andy Warren, who does such an amazing job with literally everything he touches. A great couple of interviews. I'm guessing you probably want to touch on the second one, really. We don't need to kind of go back over his thoughts on the season. I mean, feel free. But what were your chief takeaways from Andy's chat with Mark Ashton?
It's good that Ashton did the chat because it does give us the oxygen to talk about something else in this podcast. But I was surprised. I was surprised a little bit at the sort of almost like telling off tone of it. The sort of obviously we need to move season ticket holders. This is happening. Don't talk to us. We'll tell you what's happening. And I
didn't see it like that, Joe.
I think the message is correct, but I was surprised at how it was delivered. It seemed a little bit okay. Well, yeah, because you are going to be upsetting a lot of people with this. People who've sat in those seats forever. But I think there maybe could have been a more tactful way of doing it rather than all the staff are going to be really busy. So don't phone us because we've got too much other stuff to be dealing with there. But I appreciate that is probably what he wants to say. But I guess sometimes you don't always say exactly what you want to say on it, do you? But it was, yeah, it was strange how, because it split it into two parts, and the first part was very sort of positive there, and the second one is almost like from the very start of it was like, right, this is the shit of the shit sandwich coming in here, so we'll see how that goes.
I'd literally, in my capacity as managing people from time to time, I remember having to deliver bad news once, and to be fair, it said exactly that, Seb. It said, you need to go straight in, be really, really honest about it. And I guess that was just the, obviously we're talking about the manoeuvring of season ticket seats. What was your sort of take on it, Seb?
I think you're right. I think that's page one of delivering change and news to people, isn't it? If you're up front, if you're clear about it, if you're transparent, as one of the latest buzzwords seems to be, then at least people can kind of get on board with it quicker. And what's that change curve? You know, acceptance, denial, anger, whatever it is. At least you can start to move through that kind of quicker. Yeah, a bit like Joe. I was a bit surprised a little bit how it was kind of very bullet point. This is happening. It sounds like the Cobbold stand is going to be the place to be after 20 years of me kind of sitting in there and it being the place where fans kind of sit down and politely applaud and get names wrong, etc. We're getting safe standing. We've got A block already. Sounds like we're going to be ripping it up for the new season. So more good news. I guess we'll wait and see who's impacted by the moves of seats and stuff. And just great to have a bit of content from the club and great to hear that. Well, I think within 24 hours there were pictures online of skips and Harris fencing, and Portman already said will be a building site imminently, and it looks like they're cracking on nice and quickly to get it ready.
So, Joe, safe standing and more away fans going in the top of the aforementioned Cobbold stand, home of Seb.
Yeah, and I think it's a good because there is the atmosphere in that stand, obviously, because you've got the Blue Action guys in Block A there and the away fans in V1 and V2, but it's going to be getting wider. So I wonder how that affects. Is it Block D, which is the sort of the people where the people who sit in the centre spot sometimes go up there, or the Hall of Fame restaurant as it is now go and sit up there as well. So yeah, it's going to be some changes there, but it is what it is. It sounds like in January we had the Premier League come out and tell us what we needed to do, and there is no run up to this. It is like bang, get the works started, and you to have a chance of getting there for the start of next season. But I guess there's probably an element of the sort of safety reasons for wanting to get safe standing in that Cobbold stand, because you've got people standing on in A B now, all the away ends there. You've got a lot of people standing up there. That it's sort of that steep, quite a steep incline on that, and then you've got the over the top of the advertising boardings, which we've seen people go over before, including on the last day of the season to get on the pitch. There was quite a few people finding out that the drop was a little bit further than it looked sometimes when you were going that way. But yeah, no, so I think it's a safety thing. But yes, it's all positive. The stadium is, like I said, we know the stadium is or has been tired, and it's going to be hard to get up to the levels. And with 22 years outside the top flight, I imagine even the teams in the top flight have things they need to do each year to keep up with the Premier League's ever-expanding list of what they need to do to make it the greatest league in the world, the biggest watch TV league in the world. So, yeah, you just got to do it, don't you? And it's costing a lot of money, but it will all be worth it.
Loads more cameras for the VAR and for the TV feeds around the world, Seb. Might even affect my seat in the top of the Pioneer as well. I'm sure those underused sort of gantry bits that have sort of been sat there for years and years. I don't know whether they'll come back into use. And I think we've already seen the boxes in the middle of the Pioneer all been ripped out.
Yeah, those ones down by the North Stand, they seem to have been blocked off forever, don't they? At least the last few years or so. And they were one of the pictures I saw online. They were kind of see-through. You could see through to the kind of Astro pitch out the back. And I guess the media will stay the same. The media room will still be the one down by the...
Did you worry about the weight distribution when you saw that picture?
No, I'm not that nerdy, to be honest with you. No, I'll leave that
I
to
just don't think they ever finished those boxes. I don't think they ever finished those boxes. They were just to be done at some point in the future. So they were just... They got halfway and ran out of money effectively to do the rest. So whether they're finishing those or whether they're trying to do something separate, because I know they want to try and get more restaurants as opposed to just boxes in the corporate areas. So there's a lot going on. Like I say, I was down because my son plays football on the pitch on the Thursday, and the Thursday after the season finished, that was all knocked out. I know they're showing pictures of it this week, but that work had started between the sort of game on the Saturday and the Thursday after. It was all set up and started there. So it is a straight into that. So that stuff must have been planned regardless of what division we were going to be in.
Do you have the final word on that, Seb?
Well, the comment you've put up, or the Port Monroe developments?
Yeah, just the developments. Just ran this bit out.
Yeah, no, just it will look great again, as it always does. They spent a lot of money, haven't they, sort of tarting it up for the last couple of years. We know it was run down. Ashton always refers back to they kind of inherited something that was worse than they were expecting, and a few licks of paint here, a few graphics there, and hopefully come the opening day in mid-August, whenever we play at home for the first game, it's going to look exceptional like always.
I have to be very stoic when I'm reading this out, because some really, really bad news here concerning our friend Mark, who we've been following his journey with motor neurone disease. And I know David reached out and sent us a wonderful picture in a Blue Monday hoodie that you can see there if you're watching on YouTube. Excuse me. So Mark has been now sent to St. Elizabeth's Hospice. So I think, well, I don't really need to say any more. Excuse me, sorry. Other than that, and yeah, we just send all our love, obviously. Excuse me, sorry. Just send all our love, obviously, to Mark, who's been a great follower of the podcast and a great follower of Town. Sorry. And right, sorry, it just got me a bit. And I don't know what was on my next thing on the script. I'm so sorry, guys. Playoffs. We know it's going to be Leeds and Southampton, Joe, in the playoff final. That top four is going to provide 3 of the promotion places.
Yes, and it was, I think there's a lot of chat in the Telegram group, like Jack in there especially was saying that when we saw the first legs and Norwich drew 0-0 and West Brom drew 0-0, that it felt they seemed to think it was a better result than it actually looked on paper, because it meant they had to go to St Mary's and Ellen Road respectively to get something, and they didn't look like getting anything at any point in the games. West Brom hung in for a little bit longer, but Norwich were awful. Leeds absolutely... It was men against boys in that game, and West Brom didn't look like they had anything in the Southampton game. So I think it showed that the top 4 in this league were a long way ahead of everyone else. And it's now. I think it's going to be an excellent final. It could be one of those real classic ding-dong sort of late 90s, early 2000s final, as opposed to some of the more stodgy games we've had over recent years. So I'm really looking forward to not watching that while I'm at my cousin's wedding next week. So that'll be good.
How do you see it playing out, Seb?
Yeah, I think that the two obviously best sides across the two legs went through. It was a dross sort of couple of affairs last Sunday, wasn't it? And then, as Joe said, Norwich were absolutely awful. You watch that Leeds side and you think, how did they lose 4-0 to QPR on that Friday night? You know, that was Leeds at their absolute best. Atmosphere at Ellen Road obviously was always going to be electric. And yeah, even in the other game, you know, like Joe said, West Brom hung out for a little bit longer. But any thoughts I had of kind of Corberon shutting out the game and, you know, nicking it 1-0 fairly obviously from kind of 15 minutes in, you were thinking this isn't how it's going to work out. And yeah, it's the right two teams, isn't it? You know, much as we have our kind of angst with Leeds and Russell Martin, particularly at Southampton, it's kind of the right two teams to be in the final, and it's a hell of a shootout. And the great news is we make £5 million because one of the sides is going up, and the parachute money gets redistributed. So another £5 million in the coffers for the Portman Road redevelopments.
And Joe, our friends, I'm loath to talk about parachute payments ending for Norwich because last time that happened, they managed to grab Emi Buendia and Timu Pukki and got promoted the next season. But they've also got rid of their managers since. Any take on that quickly, Joe?
I think it's been inevitable for a long time that Wagner was going to go, because considering they've probably been top of the form table or very close to for the whole second half of the season. They've only lost 3 or 4 games in that time, but every time they do lose one, it's like the end of the world. It's that situation where, and I don't know enough Norwich fans to bother wasting my time talking to them about why, but it does just feel like there was no love for him there. And when it's like that with a manager, you can't just keep going just because they're getting some decent result. So I think they're probably, I don't know, not glad to see the back of him, or glad to have got knocked out so they could get rid of him, because it would have been interesting had he actually got them over the line in the playoffs there, because a manager that just wasn't rated by the fan base, would they have kept him for the Premier League? You assume they would have done, but yeah, it was a very strange situation. But I'd say he's not been a lot of love for him there for a long time, so I think they're looking forward to moving on, and hopefully this appointment will go terribly for them.
It's childish. So 6th and 7th with Rossignol as well, sacking their manager since the end of the regular season, Seb.
Yeah, and obviously they're linked with the Arsenal assistant manager and stuff. It's getting into silly seasons. Vacancies are becoming available. Will Still left the French side, didn't he? He's on the marketplace as well. So yeah, you're going to be doing I think you better queue up your podcast for a few videos over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, we need some at the blooming end of the season, so that's all right then, Seb. Right. Do you remember when I used to start the podcast by saying everybody stay calm when we won a game for the first time in about 3 months? I've got to say everybody stay calm now, because this has been extremely triggering news to Ipswich Town fans. And what we want to do is try and have a grown-up conversation, not pretend that we can read the minds of either Paul Barber at Brighton or Kieran McKenna, his agent, or Mark Ashton at Ipswich. But we need to discuss this. Just quickly, guys, just confirm to me you've not spoken to Kieran McKenna since Roberto De Zerbi has left Brighton. So we have no definite information. We are going to give you our opinion, which is completely subjective and frankly a hunch, about what another bloke is thinking about a potential job that might come up. It's that kind of spurious. But you go first, Seb. The Brighton job is open now, and some reasonably well-sourced journalists have said that McKenna's on the list. The betting odds, I always say, is a liability, not a probability, but plenty of money's gone on Kieran McKenna by the way they've come in. 2 questions, Seb. If you were Brighton, would you want Kieran McKenna? If you were Kieran McKenna, would you want to go to Brighton? Away you go.
If I was Brighton, would I want Kieran McKenna? Yes, we know he fits their model. We know they're an incredibly well-run side. They're the poster child, really, aren't they, for a side to get promoted and look to kind of use the foreign markets to develop talent, sell them for big money. So yes, they will want him. Will Kieran McKenna want Brighton? I think if we take it's very easy to become tribal, isn't it, and kind of defend our corner. I don't think that Brighton are a bigger club than we are. However, if you look at the current pecking order, then it's a step up. It's it's undoubtable in my eyes. It's a step forward for him. We know he's very ambitious. We know he's spoken in the past about wanting to get back to kind of, Champions level league of coaching, which obviously he's done when he was at Man United. And a club like Brighton, an established, well-run Premier League side, is a natural stepping stone to that. I know the links came out with Chelsea and Man United in the last couple of days. They would be big jumps forward. But if you go to a side like Brighton, maybe you get yourself back into the Europa League and have a decent campaign there, then all of a sudden, look at Potter. He went to Chelsea. De Zerbi was linked with United. He's been linked with Bayern Munich. That's the kind of level of side where the bigger boys that McKenna will want to get back to, they will look at managers at that level. So whilst obviously we have absolutely no idea what's going on in Kieran McKenna's head, he's on holiday by all accounts. Hopefully he's having a lovely time with his phone switched off. It will certainly be an appealing prospect to him. We've just got to hope that he fancies 1 year with us, because I assume maybe a Brighton level job, without sounding too harsh, a Brighton level job is probably still going to be here in 12 months' time, regardless if we go down or up. But, I guess as a manager, it can be a relatively short career, and he's got to think what's best for my career, what's best for me, and what's best for my family at this time. And as harsh as it sounds, it is a step up.
Very easy, Joe, to get a bit defensive about this sort of thing, isn't it? And, speak in definitive terms about something that, frankly, we don't know how any of the parties feel. I'm sure there's probably not one single Ipswich Town fan that would say, "Oh, it's fine. Yeah, he can go. We'll find a replacement and we'll crack on." But what's your take on the whole situation, Joe?
Yeah, Brighton has been the job all year that has worried me coming up, the sort of De Zerbi leaving there, because it seemed like it was right in that sweet spot between, I don't think he'd probably go all the way into one of those top 6 or 7 clubs. I guess Chelsea are the only one where there is you don't know what they're going to do next, really, because they seem to sort of go the other way to what people are expecting them to do. But generally, I thought he wouldn't get one of those top 6 or 7 jobs. Anything else, the sort of probably the other ones there, like Aston Villa and West Ham, probably, I don't think they'd have gone for him. I think they'd want someone with more experience, as you see when they had Emery last time, or Lopetegui this time. And then the rest, I don't think would be a big enough step up for him to go to. So that was them, and Palace were sort of the two worries for me. And Palace have obviously just appointed Gladstone. He's done a fantastic job there. So we sort of dodged that bullet. So yeah, Brighton is that one where it's when you look at sort of come tomorrow or come next Sunday when that's there, the 24-25 relegation odds will be released by the bookies, and Ipswich are going to be very short odds. Brighton are going to be quite long odds, and it's just a case of where does he see the best route to get into a Champions League job? Is it staying here for 1 more year and then making the jump from there? Is it going to Brighton and maybe taking 2 years there to do it? But it's a very, very attractive job. I'm sure most managers in world football would like to get there. But I think that for me, I'd say it's a toss-up, really. I think there's a very real chance he goes, but I'd say sort of 50-50 at the moment with regards to if they do make him their number one target and go for him. I think that they'll think they can get him. But I think every sort of Ipswich fan who's been there when we've had these processions in the park at every game, all these away games there, I think that's going to be something that's going to be very difficult for Kieran McKenna to step away from. So I think we've done as a fan base, we've done all we can to try and retain him. And had we not got into the Premier League, this would be a no-brainer decision. He'd be sort of walking there as opposed to sort of being dragged there, which I think it will be if he goes there now. But it's going to be a really, really tough decision. And I think I'd say we're all just going to sit here, fingers crossed, praying, hoping that he's still here for next season. But I guess one of the only positives is if he isn't, is that it's going to happen within the next week or two, isn't it? Whatever happens, it's going to happen relatively quickly. So we're in a position to make sure we can give ourselves the best chance. It isn't the 1st of August; it's the 19th of May at the moment. So, but like I say, like all Ipswich fans, we're hoping that he stays because he's got the best manager we've seen here for the majority of us, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just having the humility to understand that there is the possibility that he might be interested in doing it. I guess my hope, Seb, I'm honestly at the point where I think if they want him, and I assume, I haven't read the contracts, this is all guessing, probably neither of you in the chat either. Being there was a new contract, you would imagine he's got the necessary get outs and the compensations and everything. I would imagine if they want to talk to him that a conversation would probably take place. The only thing that's in my head is that Brighton have been quite decisive and quite left field with their appointments. I remember Chris Hughton was just gone and Graham Potter had finished halfway up the championship with year one parachute money with Swansea, and he went in there, and I'd frankly never heard of De Zerbi. Maybe that says more about my European football knowledge than his popularity. But that's my hope, Seb, that they've already got somebody lined up who none of us are expecting.
Well, hopefully, yeah. I mean, as we've said, they're an incredibly well-run side. So a bit like Mark Ashton's infamous data dashboard, they will have a list, won't they, probably of 3, 4, 5 targets to go for. And you've just got to hope that whilst McKenna probably is in the top 2, maybe there's somebody else that we're not sure about. I saw there was a newspaper reports that De Zerbi had recommended somebody from Europe. Forgive me, I don't know the guy's name or anything. And you've got to hope that kind of thing is true. But if there is a chance for them to talk to McKenna and McKenna elects to have a conversation, then all we can do is...
Seb,
that's it, yeah. That's it, yeah.
Francesco Ferret. Thanks, Luke, in the chat.
Yeah, so hopefully you've got to hope that's their number one plan. But there's too much kind of high credibility sources quoting this. There's no smoke without fire, and some of these are coming from very reputable sources. So he's clearly on their short list. And if he wants to have a conversation with them, then so be it. It sounds like something similar happened with Palace back in kind of February, March time. And all we can do is sit back and wait and hope that he kind of realizes that a season with us, maybe keeping us up, will get him that level of job next season, or perhaps even higher, depending on how it goes. But yeah, we can't influence it. Try not to get too emotional and stuff on social media. Control the controllables and just sit back and wait and see how it plays out. But like you both said, the good news is this should, in theory, be done by the end of May, shouldn't it? Brighton will move quickly if it's them. I don't think United or Chelsea will happen, but either way, these big, well-run outfits will look to a point very, very quickly, and we will need to, obviously, with planning and pre-season and stuff. So it should be a relatively, hopefully, ripping the plaster off rather than death by 1,000 cuts.
And I think that because we haven't been in the Premier League so long, I think maybe in the fan bases, maybe people don't see how big they are and how far ahead Brighton are than us currently. That there's talks that people saying, "Oh, we could finish above them next season." It's like, yeah, we could, but it took Brighton 5 years to finish above 15th in the Premier League, and then the last 3 they've now finished sort of in the top 10, or I think they were 11th today.
I think they've broken some kind of profit record as well with all their trading this season, haven't they?
Yeah, and like they're linked with a player from Celtic, Matt O'Reilly, for 50 million quid in the papers today, and their training ground is just absolute top notch. Their academy, they're signing players from across the world. They're selling Caicedo for 100 million, McAllister to Liverpool for 50 million. We can catch Brighton, and I think we will do under this ownership, and we'll get there. But I think it's going to take 3 or 4 years, and if we could catch them in 3 or 4 years, we've done amazingly well to do that. So that is just the difference for me of how far ahead they are at the moment, and it's that they're far ahead because they've had great ownership for the last 15 years, and bar the last 2.5 years, we've had pretty poor ownership. So
well, and Joe, just
you can't turn these things around overnight, can you?
Just quickly to come in, Joe. The difference between teams that have even a couple of Premier League years and teams that haven't is just so ginormous with the cliff edge in finances at the moment. You'll see someone like a Forest or a Brentford will be now on a par with all of the top teams in Spain, well, other than the 2 massive Spanish ones. But do you know what I mean? I've seen all the charts where they spend more money on transfers and have higher turnovers than all the top clubs. Just a run-of-the-mill Premier League club now, don't they?
Well, it used to be. I can't remember who it was, but I think it was Leicester maybe at the time or someone. But it was like they had a higher turnover and higher wage bill than Borussia Dortmund did when they were like in the Champions League final.
It was QPR.
Oh, was it QPR?
QPR, and they got relegated. Yeah,
QPR relegated from the Premier League with a higher turnover than the team in the Champions League final. So it's just, like I say, I think that as also with McKenna, he's not going to in this 5-year journey to try and get to like a club of Brighton stature. McKenna's not going to be with us through this whole journey, so we're going to have to deal with his leaving at some point in that 4 to 5 year period. We just hope it's not soon, and hope we can be recruiting a manager from a stronger base. We're already, if he does go, recruiting a manager as a Premier League club as opposed to a Championship club, which does open up more. It does open up a Michael Carrick or a Danny Roll or someone who's got a good championship job at the moment, we're now much more attractive than they are, in the same way that Brighton are more attractive than we are. So if it happens, it happens. But I think, like, if I had to put a bet on it, which I haven't, I think I'd just edge towards McKenna staying. I think what he's done here, he'll struggle to walk away from.
Yeah. Last word from you on this.
Wait and see what happens. Like Joe said, I think it's 50-50. I think if they have a conversation, he might hopefully realise what a great thing he's got here. You know, what I keep thinking of, he was quite committed in the post-match interview. I know people say it's emotion talking and you kind of see that stuff, but we know McKenna is naturally not he's very calculated, he's calm, he doesn't let emotion get the better of him, apart from the last minute at Hull away where he's smashing the dugout. So yeah, hopefully I like to keep thinking that he will have a career plan in his head for the next 5-10 years. And we forget he's only, is he 38 years old, something crazy like that? You know, he's a very, very young guy, and you can move to bigger clubs too soon. So yeah, please stay for a year at least, and then we'll see where we are this time in 12 months.
And hopefully this conversation can go into the ether, and Brighton will hire somebody I've never heard of, and we'll all move on with our lives. But we have to have it, and we have to stay balanced, and we have to go to a promo from our friends at Innovation Labs right now.
Innovation Labs, providing co-working and innovation hubs across East Anglia. We're the perfect place for remote workers, freelancers, startups or innovators to do business. Our unique member network creates extensive business development and collaboration opportunities. Hot desks are available from £20 a day or £99 per month, with business coaching also available from £50. Innovation Labs, turning your ideas into multi-million-pound businesses. Located in Stowmarket, Ipswich, Sudbury, with new sites in Thetford, Norwich and Kuala Lumpur, opening soon.
Just a big shout out to Innovation Labs. Obviously, been amazing to us. Great partners, throughout the seasons here on the podcast, and allowed us to do a lot of stuff with their support. So huge thank you to them. And our NordVPN promo is still active. You can follow the link in the description. Although maybe your needs will be lessened, given we're going to be on every TV channel. I don't know what I'm suggesting there, but you can get some NordVPN usage by following our link. Right, we're going to have a little look at the squad depth and move on from talking about vacant managerial jobs. Joe, do you want to kind of lead off what the plan is, and then we'll get the image up?
Yeah, so we've just pulled together effectively the squad. I know it sounds simple, but there's probably players you haven't realised we've still got on the books here who've maybe been out on loan or coming back. And it's just all the players in the squad with their contract status, whether it's expired, whether there's a option on the top, how long they've got left, where we are in each position. There, we're just going to sort of have a quick chat through of each position in the squad. And there's some interesting bits in there, I think, especially the first one we'll speak about is probably the goalkeeper position. Well,
let's get right in there then, Joe. And we've got the contract lengths next to the players' names. Walton, Slicker, Hladky, Hayes. Talk to me about Ipswich Town's goalkeeper depth and presumably Christian Walton's salary if he's going to be on the bench.
Yeah, so we've got Nick Hayes, who's sort of been the third choice keeper last season and this year has been out on loan. I think first at Southend and then latterly at Solihull Moors. He's lost twice at Wembley in the last 2 weeks in the playoff final and the FA Trophy final. But I think probably at his age, he's now got enough of a sort of appearances behind him to go and find a club lower down the pyramid. So he's one you imagine will go. Flicker's got another 2 years, so he's going to be a long-term keeper here, part of the squad. And then you've got the Hladky and Walton queries where Hladky, it sounds like we're sort of close to agreeing a contract with him, a sort of a longer-term contract, and we will do. But Walton is on he was on a very high wage when we were in League One, which presumably has gone up substantially. Now we're a Premier League team. And previously it was always talk, well, you take the option on him to sell him. But is that where we are now? Is that what we'd want to do? Or do we need to sign a new number one? It's a really up in the air position. My personal view would be sort of Walton to be sold somehow, Hladky to be the number two.
Well, Joe, as in you take the option and then you take the transfer fee?
If that's doable, I would do it. Otherwise, I think I'd probably just release him and let him go, which is crazy when we were where we were at the start of this season, where you'd think he's going. If I said someone who's going to play the next 100 games for Ipswich, everyone would have said, please.
He's going to end up down the A6 from me at Kenilworth Road if we do that, isn't he?
Yeah, most likely. But it's just a really sort of strange situation how that's developed with him. But yeah, we're now in a position where effectively the only keeper who's contracted into next season at the moment is Kieran Slicker, who's, I think, has played 2 senior games for us and 2 senior games for Rochdale and the EFL trophy. So he's a very, very inexperienced keeper, even though he looked promising when he did play in the EFL Cup for us at the start of last season.
Seb, I just put this one up from Jules. New number 1 for the Premier League. Is that something you think might be under consideration? Just, can't remember who said it, but how I'll tell you who it was. It was that guy who got all the flowers for Newcastle's recruitment back in down. I can't remember his name, but that the goalkeeping position was massively underrated. And if, in terms of points return, etc., if you're going to invest in a keeper.
Very much so, and we've seen that our style of play, we need that level of keeper that's comfortable with the ball at his feet. Obviously, I agree. I think Walton, you trigger and you sell, and if you can get 300, 400, 500 grand maybe for him from a championship side, that's decent business. Then I think you sign a relatively not experienced in terms of age, but someone who's got a bit of Premier League pedigree behind them, and you let him and Klagke kind of fight it out. Walton isn't going to want to spend another year sitting on the bench. That'll be for sure. He spent the vast majority of his career that way. He got number 1 kind of football for 18 months or so. He will want to move on for the sake of his career. Klagke's been phenomenal this season so far. He's kind of shocked us all, and the way he's able to kind of play so high up the pitch, almost like another outfield player. We've seen that style of play really develop. So I think you try and find someone in a similar mold, a bit younger. Klagke is 32, 33. So maybe you tie him down to a 2 or 3 year deal. I guess maybe he starts the season as the number 1 and gets the crack at it, but you have that signing in the wings ready to come in, who's got a bit of Premier League experience and kind of the know-how to kind of hopefully make those incremental differences when you need it and get you those extra 5-6 points, which could prove so crucial at the end of a season.
Joe, do you want to do both sides at fullback? And this was where the investment went in League One, didn't it, in terms of Clark and Davis? But yeah, talk to me about the fullback spots.
Well, effectively at right back, you've got Harry Clark, who's still got 2 years left in his contract, so he'll be staying here. Janoy Donation, whose contract is up this summer, there's no option on that, and I think he only played 3 games for us this season. I know he time for injury, but he does seem a long way down the pecking order, so imagine he's going to be one that goes. Brandon Williams obviously is returned on loan, and I can't see any way that we sign him this summer. It seems like that should be out, and if he's going to be playing for next season, he's going to be doing well. And then obviously we've had Axel Tuanzebe play there. He has got an option on his contract, so it is up, but we've got an option. And it's just, is he going to be seen as a right back, or is he maybe going to be seen as a second? But I think we do take that option effectively, because I think he started like 11 of the last 13 games of the season, so he's really sort of got into his stride and helped us get over the line there. And he's, like I say, we know all about his talent levels, and it's just a case of getting him up to speed and getting him in the team. And it was very difficult to do so when the team was performing so well. But that sort of class has shone through, and he's really, really found his feet there now. So yeah, I imagine he's one that we keep initially, and that sort of leaves us currently, I guess, with 2 right backs with Clark and Tuanzebe. But it's just, where does he move across there? Do we play more of the 3 at the back that we were playing more in the latter part of the season, as opposed to the 4-2-3-1 there? And then on the other side, you've got Leif Davis, who's still under contract. He's still got a couple of years left on him. And as a backup, we've got on there is Cameron Humphreys, because that's the only place he's played for the first team this season in the league, when he's made a couple of appearances there. So it's there. But again, you feel he's probably one that you want to look to upgrade on in that position. And Cameron Humphreys is still of an age. He's the only player in the squad where he doesn't count against a 25-man squad limit for next season in the Premier League. So he is still a free player next year.
What's your take on the fullback spots? I'll throw in there, Seb, that Harry Clark, bloody love him, but he wasn't actually first choice, despite being a big signing down in League One. And there's still probably a number that gets Leif Davis out of Ipswich. Not that I want to see that at all in terms of the FFP position and raising funds as well. I'm just going to throw it out there, being we've had the McKenna conversation as well.
there's a horrible world, isn't there, when McKenna goes to Brighton and takes Leif Davis with him for 25 million quid. Yeah, no, Leif Davis is assuming he's here, he's the number one starter at left back. We need some left back cover. Harry Clark can play there, I know, but like Joe said, he wasn't kind of the preferred choice for the last dozen games or so. Twan Zabi's got a bit of Premier League experience. I think he's got 20 odd appearances for Man United, played in the Champions League for them as well. So is he an option to bring in at centre half? You know, we know he's quick. He's got that lovely turn of recovery pace, which we're about to go into a league where pace, power, athleticism are absolutely crucial. So it might be that he shifts back inside, in which case, yeah, I think we go out and get a right back and we get ourselves a left back, because I don't think we can. I know there's less games at this level, but it would be a big ask to keep flogging Leif Davis week in, week out. You know, remember last year how Greg Lee would provide that relief for him at 75, 80 minutes quite a lot of the time, and I think we're going to need that kind of that person willing in that role to sit on the bench and play, you know, the last quarter, the last 10, 15 minutes of games, just to get Davis through the season, because it's a big ask for him to keep going this way.
And quick congratulations to Greg Lee as well. If you want to get out of League One, get Greg Lee in your squad. Promoted with Oxford United in the playoff final at Wembley yesterday. Joe, centre halves.
So we have Edmondson and Wolfenden have both still got time left on their contract. And then on the flip side, we've got Elkin Baggett, who returns from a loan at Bristol Rovers, where he ended the season, who's still got a year left on his contract, and Corey Ndaba, who's got a year left. He's been at Kilmarnock, who finished fourth in the SPL. So they've both had good loan spells there, but I don't see that they're probably loan spells that are going to get you close to a Premier League team. So they're probably looking to maybe try and get a championship move from there. But the big one that we haven't heard a huge amount about is Cameron Burgess, who his contract is up now. He does have we do have a club option on that contract, and I can't imagine for 1 second that option hasn't been taken. All the players will know now, because the EFL, all the retained list, they call it, where you say if you've offered contracts to, if you're releasing them, they all have to be submitted to the EFL on yesterday, as in Saturday, the 18th of May. So we will have let the EFL know. So I imagine an announcement will be imminent on this, but I can't imagine that Cameron Burgess is not going to have had the option taken up. And while we probably try and discuss a longer term loan for him, but really, like I said, there's 5 options there, but really it's Wolford and Edmondson and Burgess as the 3 who potentially will step up and stay with us in the first team there, and then we'll look to add there, because Ndaba and Baggett will, I imagine, go out on loan again, or we'll look to get a fee for Ndaba at his age maybe, and keep Baggett in the building.
Is that an area, Seb, where given patterns of play and coaching, where you maybe can ride out players who've done it for 2 seasons?
Yeah, potentially. I mean, I think we'll need experience again. I mean, quite a lot of this I'll keep talking about kind of a spine, an experienced spine through the team is what I would like to see this summer. We'll discuss midfield and centre forward shortly, but that's where I think our target of recruitment will be. We know Burgess and Wolfenden are so kind of drilled in, you know, picking the ball up off flag key and splitting to provide options for him to pass the ball out. And Edmondson's proved himself as a really good squad option. You know, he was kind of linked with Pompey, wasn't he, in the January window, when he came out after a game and said, "Why would I want to leave here? I love being here." And he's proved an able deputy at times when he's come into the squad. So those 3, I think, are obviously going to be your senior ones. We need at least one other body in there. And then, like Joe said, I agree. If you can get a fee for Ndaba, he's kind of going to be pure profit on the FFP, isn't he? So you can look to move him on, and then Baggett, you loan him hopefully maybe to Championship level or at least League One, and then look to see what his development is. Because I mean, Ndaba's what now? Is he 24, 25 years old now, Joe? I think. Yeah, he's not a kid anymore, is he? And yeah, if you can get a bit of money coming in for him, I think you naturally shake hands and do that one.
Central midfield, Joe?
So there's a mistake on here with Morsey. He has still got a year left in his contract, but effectively Dominic Ball is out of contract, and again, he's played very, very little this season, so you expect him to go. Lewis Travis has returned to Blackburn on loan, and we've now got Sam Morsey, Massimo Luongo, who signed a new deal in the January. I think he signed a new deal with another year's contract on it, and Jack Taylor. So we've got those 3 in there. And then Idris El Mazzouni's had another successful year in League One with Leyton Orient. So do you take up the option on him and try and get him another loan higher up the food chain? But for what we're worrying about in the Premier League this year, Idris El Mazzouni isn't really a consideration. He is just something that needs to be dealt with almost outside the first team squad. He's a fringe player in that regard. So so we go into it with Sam Morsey, Massimo Luongo and Jack Taylor under contract, and and it's just, is that free? I think we wanted 5 there at the end of the season. We had Travis and Ball in there, so we had 5 in there, and that's an area where you probably need to get 5 in there because they are really, really tough roles, and it might be that we end up playing a little bit more free in the midfield as opposed to 2s. Like Jack Taylor quite often was coming on at the end of the season when we were playing more free at the back as opposed to 4 at the back. Jack Taylor was coming on for Connor Chaplin in a lot of games, so he was maybe more as an 8/10 as opposed to a 10 who's sort of a second striker. He was more like that, and I think maybe where we're going to get less of the ball in these Premier League games, you end up maybe looking to get 5 in there and having one sort of covering sort of more as an attacking midfield role.
What's your take, Seb?
Yeah, that's the position since promotion where kind of the most targets have been discussed, isn't it? We know it's an area we need to look to strengthen. Obviously, Dominic Ball will likely be released. Lee Evans moved on in when was it, February, March time. So I think it's an area we need to strengthen. Ben Sheaf, Flynn Downs, they're the names that are kind of coming up. So we know it's an area that we're going to need to get some athleticism and some bodies into. Morsey obviously will be the nail and starter, regardless of age, etc. Luongo might have to settle for being more of a squad player. And then I guess if you do bring in 1 or 2, do you keep Taylor around? Do you look to loan him to the Championship for a year? I think I'd keep him in the squad. I think he's got a role to play. I like the fact he can get forward. He drives with the ball, which I think is a useful attribute to have. So yeah, I think that's going to be probably one of the main areas. I said a minute ago about the spine, but that central midfield is going to be absolutely crucial for our business this summer because it's the double pivot, isn't it? It's the player that will drop deep and pick the ball up off the centre arse and the goalkeeper, and then suddenly it's the ones that drive and bring the wide players and the striker into play. So we know it's a crucial area of our team, and it's no surprise that's where most of the names are being linked with so far.
Wingers, Joe, just do the leave the 10 for a second.
Okay, so on the right at the moment, we've obviously got Wes Burns, who's got a year left and has been fantastic for us and will continue to play a big part for us next year. Amari Hutchinson returned on loan, and then the players probably the biggest question mark for me and those who are out of contract is Caden Jackson, because I don't think he's good enough to play a lot of minutes in the Premier League. I don't think he would play a lot of minutes in the Premier League if he were to stay. I think if we were to offer him a contract, it very much with the view of being 24/25th man in the squad, maybe picking up 200 or 300 league minutes and playing in some of the cup games this year. And I can see a way that it's better to do that than it is to try and recruit someone to play that role. It's a very difficult role to recruit for, to say to somebody, I want you to come and join the squad and you're not going to play. Where someone like Jackson, who's already in the building, you could do that with. So that's an interesting one on that side.
I agree. I think Jackson might well stick around. I think it would be surprising, and what a redemption arc and what a journey that would be for him. But as I said earlier, it's a league of athleticism and pace and kind of directness. And yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he got a 1-year deal and he was like Joe says, the backup to that wide right role, because he's got by far the best acceleration and the best pace in the squad, and that could make the difference, couldn't it? When we're kind of looking to either stretch games or push for late points.
Left wing, Joe?
Yeah, there we've got Nathan Broadhead, Marcus Harness, and obviously Jeremy Sarmiento has returned back to Brighton now. But Nathan Broadhead is obviously a player that's going to be key for us next year. He's sort of top scorer this year, or joint top scorer with Connor Chaplin, 13. But Marcus Harness is a funny one because he's signed as a relatively big money signing at the start of last season. This year, he's barely started. Since when Nathan Broadhead joined in January, he's barely started any games since then. And even to the point over the last 3 to 4 months, or the last sort of 2 to 3 months of the season when Sarmiento was there, he wasn't even getting on the bench for a lot of games at the end of the season, especially when Hurst and Burns were back fit. So he's one that, even though he's still got time in his contract, it wouldn't surprise if he's one we look to try and move on, or he again takes a role similar to what I just spoke about for Jackson there, where you're in the squad, but you're almost there as a training player who's going to maybe get two or three sub appearances in the league in the season. So it's just whether he's happy with that or whether he wants to push for more than that.
Seb?
Broadhead, I agree, will be absolutely crucial. I think, has he got 1 Premier League appearance with Everton? So it's basically a step up for him. But you know, he's such a lovely, classy player. I think he'll be crucial in the way we want to play, like we've seen. Harness, I think, will move on. I think him and Edmondson are probably my question marks. Edmondson won't go till we get somebody through the door. But I think Harness might well be one that looks to go. He's got a year left on his contract. Don't think there's an option on it. So if you're going to cash it in, now's the time to do it. What did we pay for him? Was it 700 grand or so?
But Harness or Broadhead?
for Harness? Was it
I think
600-700?
600-700, yeah,
Okay,
in that range, wasn't it?
At League One, that's a big money signing. If you can get that money back from a Championship club, he'd do a job. Obviously, we saw it in kind of fits and starts last year. He popped up with some crucial assists, some crucial goals. He'd do a job for somebody, and I think he might be one that moves on.
I think it's also the difficult position with players like Harness, and where he's signed as a sort of relatively expensive League One player. His contract has gone up when he's moved into the Championship. It's now gone up again into the Premier League, and now he's going to be earning a wage which isn't commensurate with his ability level. He's not proven that he's a top Championship player, and now he's going to be earning easily top Championship money. So it's very, very difficult to move on players of that, and it might be that some agreements come to, whether it's a loan, whether it's that, or whether he just comes and plays out his contract, helping us in the training and doing that. But yeah, he's not a player I see playing a huge part next year, but he's played his part getting us here. That's goals at Birmingham, just one thing to get in the way he started last year, but it's just the club has moved that. There are players left behind. I think he's one of them.
Joe, did you address Sarmiento and Hutchinson before your coughing fit?
No, that was they both have just
Seb
gone
bailed
back.
you out there. I tell you, it was great.
Yeah, they are the two players who I think a lot of fans would like to keep, but this leads on to the loan discussions. Next season in the Premier League, you're only allowed to have 2 loans from other English or Welsh teams, as it is to include Cardiff and Swansea at the same time. So effectively, you can, if were able to renew Hutchinson and Sarmiento, that would be our only loans that we could get from English clubs. You can get international loans. I think you can have up to 4 of them, but I'm not sure on that. But Burnley had 4 this year that they were able to have at the same time as loans, sort of domestic loans. But yeah, it's just our Hutchinson and Sarmiento, if we are able to get them, are they the ones we want to get? Because you can only get 2. They can't be from the same club, and you can only have 2 there. You can change the 2 in the January transfer window, so you can have different ones then. But you don't want to be doing that because it means your first choices haven't worked out well through the first half of the season. So it's going to be a very, very difficult decision on who to go for those, isn't it?
Very much so. Right, 10, Joe.
Yeah, the 10. We've got Connor Chaplin, and that's it. Shawnee Aluko's there, has retired. Panucci Camara, we do have an option on him, but I think we're just going to sort of probably release him and try.
Where was he? Charlton?
He was at Charlton, barely played last year. He played 1 league minute for us in signing, so that has been a disaster of a signing. Whether it's injuries, bad choices, bad signing, we don't know. But ultimately, he's one that's going to be swept under the rug and moved on from there. So yeah, it is only Connor Chaplin in that role, so that is going to be somewhere we really are going to target. We've already seen some of the names linked. I think Stanley Smodix is one of the names linked already, isn't there? And there's going to be a lot of players of that ilk and that quality mentioned. But
did you see Smodich on Big Sam's podcast?
I didn't. I couldn't stomach Big Sam for long enough to listen to it.
Yeah, he won't be at Blackburn in August.
No, and the fact he signed a new contract in January or December, and I think his partner's had a baby and she wants to move back down to sort of somewhere near the Colchester area or somewhere back down south. So the fact he signed a contract, there must be some element of get out in that. There must be a clause. There must be something built into that, or he just wouldn't have signed that contract then. He'd have just played out on his contract. So yeah, he's one, but we are going to need to add some real quality into that team and some goals effectively into that. And finding players who can score in the Premier League is no mean feat.
It cost Forest a few quid in an FFP breach, Seb. Talk to me about 10.
Yeah, Chaplin's the only viable option at the moment. Jack Taylor can push forward if need be. But like you guys said, I think we might see a more kind of deeper 3-man central midfield at times last season. It's going to be a crucial part of the recruitment. It's probably going to be the bit we spend a lot of money on. You know, do you look to get Hutchinson back to cover that role? I preferred him in the 10 to when he was playing out. Certainly wide left. Wide right, I liked him when he was cutting in. But again, you've then got a decision to make regarding the loan situation or spending a huge chunk of money, because Chelsea are probably going to want at least 20 million odd quid for him, aren't they? Which sounds crazy considering our transfer record is still 4.5 million quid for Matteo Serini 20 odd years ago. So it's a very interesting area of the pitch where, yeah, I think we're going to spend big money in that position and hopefully deliver a player that will, like Joe said, score goals in that position, because it's, you know, getting when you Ashton said in the interview, didn't he, when you get higher, the numbers get bigger, but the risk gets bigger as well. So you've got to ensure that the money you spend, I know we're probably going to spend 40, 50 million quid this summer, which again sounds crazy. We've got to make sure it's done in a sensible way and got to make sure they make the right decisions, which I think they will, but given the, the data dashboard, and Sam Williams is still here at the moment up until the end of the season doing the recruitment aspect side of things. So I think they will spend it well, spend it wisely, but it's important they get that position right, because we've seen what's happening, delivered 40 goals in the last 2 years, absolutely critical part of the team. And hopefully, if it's not him, somebody can hit the ground running.
Makes my head explode, these numbers, Seb. I know Luton didn't go over 5 million, did they, with their signings? I know they spread them out, but then you look at the likes of Burnley and Forest, and then you take someone like Brentford, who's been up a few years, and literally every single one of their signings is like 15 to 30 million or what have you now. But yeah, you need more than one season of £100 million broadcast money and the rest to sustain that. Guys, get prepped with your questions, because we'll go to them after Joe takes us through the number 9 position.
Yeah, so we currently have 4 number 9s contracted to next season. We've lost Kiefer Moore back to Bournemouth, and I don't see that, even though he's done brilliantly for us, I don't see it's one that we'll be going back in for. He doesn't sort of fit the model of the other ones, which are George Hurst, who was brilliant when he came back, Al Hamady, who's a similar style striker, big, can put himself about, but also quick and can run in behind. And that's obviously what we're looking for. Maybe he's not quite ready for the Premier League, but do you have him hang around as your third choice number 9 behind George Hurst and another? I think we can safely say Freddie Ladapo won't be part of the Premier League squad next season. He's had an underwhelming loan spell at Charlton. That again was someone that we were looking to upgrade in the Championship. He's done his job. He helped his 21 goals in the League One season helped us escape League One, and he's done that. But again, he's another player, like we mentioned, Marcus Harness, who's probably earning really good money, and we're going to struggle to shift next year. Ghassan Ahadmi had an excellent loan spell at Cambridge. Is he one that we can maybe get a loan spell higher up the food chain for him next year?
Who's the manager at Cambridge now?
Gary Monk came in there, didn't he?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, he went in there. But I just think that, I say Ahadmi and Ladapo, whatever happens to them, they're, at best, they're going to be getting a loan in the Championship next season or being released. They're not going to affect us. So, yeah, I think it'll be George Hurst. And then, depending on how we can do, what targets are available, it might be Al Hamady going out also on loan. But I think that they want to have a look at him in the Premier League. And I think we'll be looking to add one striker and really push him with George Hurst, that guy, with Al Hamady in reserve.
Do you think, Seb, Al Hamady might go out on loan? Or are you with Joe that he's just a nice grenade to throw in terms of unpredictability?
I'd keep him around personally in and around the squad. I think he'll contribute at times. We kind of saw, don't forget, we signed him with an injury. He's had surgery now, so he has kind of been playing with kind of, playing through the pain for us for the last few months. I think he was so highly rated and he was on the radar of so many clubs. I think he's one you stick around with. 4 years left on the contract, so it's a real investment by the club. I think he'll be one to kind of compete with Hurst and hopefully a relatively big money signing. Someone's mentioned Latte Lath in the chat. He's one in terms of his mobility and his pace that potentially you might look at, but I've mentioned the spine previously. I think you do maybe need a kind of proven Premier League goal scorer in the George Hurst mould who can close down. And, we saw when Hurst came back in those last 3 games, his mobility and his pressing from the front, what we've been missing for the last few months or so. So I keep Al Hamady. George Hurst, I think, will, be one of the, hopefully one of the key players. And then you look to go and spend a bit of money and get somebody in who can kind of dovetail with Hurst for the starting role. And Al Hamady's the one that comes off the bench every kind of 70, 75 minutes and see what he can do.
It's interesting you talk about Latte Lath, Seb, because I raised my eyebrows. I'm like, it'll be difficult to get him. But Sheffield United absolutely stank the place out. And they took Archer and Hamer, who were 2 of the best players in the whole league for, got to the playoff semi-final. And Hamer was absolutely incredible for Coventry. And, I know it costs a pretty penny, but you have made that step up. And I think it's something me and Ipswich fans are going to have to get our heads around. There's lots of questions coming in here, guys. Should we try and bang through them? And we will start with Pete here, Joe. Yes. How much have we spent on transfers in total in our history? Will we beat this summer?
Yeah, probably, because I don't know how much we spent in history, but if you think when last time we were in the Premier League was the only time we really spent significant money. If you include the Marcus Stewart deal into that, we probably spent 12, 13 million that time. We probably spent 40 million in our history, 40 to 50 million, and yeah, chances are we go above that in the summer window, not even across the whole season.
You don't think they'd do a Luton and just keep it nice and down low? You think it will be a bit more explosive than that?
Like money is not really an issue to the club at the moment. The issue is FFP, not what it's how much we're allowed to spend, not how much we can spend. And I think we will be.
How much we're allowed to lose, Joe, not allowed to spend.
Yeah. But we'll be. I think we'll be pushing it as far as we can to the limits, and as we have done in the previous 2 seasons. When you look at, we lost £18 million in League One. That is a sign of an ownership group that are willing to invest to get where you want to go. And I think that if it stays there, we will be really, really pushing it.
If you want to keep McKenna in the building, you have to give him the backing, don't you? He's not going to stick around if we're going to do a Luton and spend no more than £5 million on kind of players. You know, he's going to want to be ambitious, because if Brighton, for example, in the world of PSR, are in a very strong financial place, so you're going to have to give him assurances that you are going to spend some decent wedge.
And as much as I love what Luton have done, and you know, we know Jay, who's on the recruitment team there, they did build like EFL All-Stars team that's probably going to be ready to go in the Championship. And yeah, Neil, if McKenna goes, Seb, do you expect the backroom team to go with him? I would imagine that would be the case, wouldn't it?
It's normally how these things are done. It seems to be a definitive split, doesn't it? There's very much McKenna's coaching team, and then Ashton and Andy Roll's kind of performance team with Gary Probert and stuff. So yeah, I assume if McKenna goes, Pert goes with him, Gil Martin, the ones that you kind of see in the dugout, Charlie Turnbull, they'll all look to move, because that's tend to be how it be. Because if they stay behind and we appoint a new manager, there's no guarantee they'll be kept on. You know, new managers like to bring their own people in, so you normally see a bit of a clear slate, a clean sweep of the current decks. And then the likes of Gary Probert, Andy Rolls, the performance team, they're the ones that would look to stay and kind of continue the work they've done for the last couple of years.
Rob, I'll take this one. What are your thoughts on the Harwood Bellis rumours if Saints stay down? Do you rate him? I like that one very much. And the good thing with that is we know what the number is, because this was agreed when he went to Southampton on loan from Man City, that it's 15. The number is 15 million as their... It's an obligation or an option if they... It might even be an obligation if they go up. They sign him permanently. I can't it'll be on the Southampton website. But yeah, that to me, I don't know if you guys agree, disagree, but that one sounds like exactly the kind of guy you'd want. You know, a little bit like Harry Clark or Leif Davis, upper level, as in the guy who came through a big club but who's got quite a body of work. Zorro Arc, Joe, are you worried we'll change too much to the squad and lose that unity and never say die attitude? Great question.
Yeah, and it's difficult, but when you look at the exercise we've just been through, looking at the squad, we're probably at the moment 8-9 players short of a 25-man squad. So we're gonna need to sign 9 players just to get us up to the limit, which we will do. Which we've been at the limit since McKenna's been here. We've always been at the limit of squads. So it's just natural that you lose 8 or 9 each season.
To his question though, Joe, sorry to interrupt. The teams that have gone up and really, kind of done well in the first season have been the ones that have ridden their team out and not actually changed that much. And you kind of looked at, okay, Fulham's a bit different because their wage bill was like 90 million in the Championship or whatever. But Sheffield United, as an example, everyone said those were League One players and they finished 9th, didn't they?
Yeah, and we're in a position where the only key player that we've come up with who might not be here next year is Amari Hutchinson. So there is someone that can replace. I'm sure you can find someone to replace him there. But the other players that will go: Jeremy Sarmiento, Kiefer Moore, the sort of Lewis Travers, Brandon Williams have gone. We'll go back. Don Balls, Shoni Aluko. These players aren't really key players in the team. Like I say, it's only really Hutchinson and to an extent a good sub in Sarmiento. So I think there will be a lot of game time still for Wes Burns, for Connor Chaplin, for at least one of Wolferdin or Burgess, for Leif Davis, for Sam Morsey. So the spine will go through it. And we know what McKenna does. He uses 5 subs every single game. So there's a lot of game time to go around. And I'm sure sort of these guys that have had the double promotion will be getting their opportunities in the league, especially the key starters in that. Maybe the guys like your Marcus Harness, your Caden Jacksons, your maybe even a Nathan Broadhead or someone might slide out. We don't know who, but a couple of them will slide out. Maybe a Massimo Luongo is probably a better example of someone who's maybe sort of run his race now. Stepping up to the Premier League is probably too big a step for him. But like I say, the 8 of the 12 players who played the most minutes for us this year will probably still play over 50% of the minutes next year.
I'll double these together for you, Seb. Will we see the first £10 million Ipswich player? Do you think we'll utilise the foreign market? I'd love us to sign someone who I've never heard of who turns out to be really good.
Do a Brighton and sign somebody for 10 million this summer, then move them on to a top 6 club for 50 million next summer. I think, didn't Ashton say that the scouting network is there? They've just never really looked to find the right player. I guess this now opens up huge new levels, doesn't it, of kind of players and markets that we've never been able to consider for the last 20 odd years. So potentially we might see a couple of people coming in from abroad. Will we see our first £10 million player? Yeah, I think we probably will. I think we might well spend that kind of money in a crucial area of the pitch, like the number 10, or maybe like a proven Premier League goal scorer. You know, I don't think necessarily that gets you that much these days, but they'll be smart with the recruitment. And if you want to sign somebody like a Hutchinson, it's probably going to start with a 2, isn't it? So yeah, I think we will finally see a kind of, you know, at least a £10 million player. Someone like Flynn Downs, I think, did West Ham spend, was it 10, 12 million quid on him? I think if you're going to look to sign
in the chat,
if you're going to look to sign him, they're going to want their money back because he's probably still got 3 years left on his contract. So yeah, we're going to have to get used to these numbers now.
Burnley signed a keeper, admittedly, England under 21. It was really good in League One for like 20 million or something, didn't they?
And Burnley spent 90 million quid and, you know, were cannon fodder for most of the season. It's so new to all of us. You know, it's my second ever promotion and it feels completely different to 25 years ago. The numbers you talk about at this level now are just mind-blowing. And yeah, like I said, that's why Ashton in the interview said that as you go up, the numbers get bigger and the risk gets bigger, but trust them to do the right thing, trust them to make the right judgments, and hopefully we'll see, it'll be nice at least, rather than, do you remember the summer we signed Di Cornell? We always refer back to them with Di Cornell, Stephen Ward, and was it Ollie Hawkins?
Ollie Hawkins. In
front of the training dome with the shirts. Yeah, those days, thankfully, are long, long behind us.
And we just spoke about Taylor Harwood-Bellis 5 minutes ago, didn't we, at 15 million as well? So,
who's never played in the Premier League, right?
Probably not.
Dear me. Last one here. Joe, I need to do some reading up on this. I don't know if you know. Elliot, does the League One season negatively impact FFP compared to if we had 2 seasons of Championship and then got promoted? So I know there's no hard limit in League One. So, for example, if you burned a load of cash for 2 seasons in the Championship, you might actually be in a worse position in terms of what the minus was, but then the allowable losses are higher because you're the division up. I know a man who will give me the answer, and I will make that happen very, very soon. But Joe, what is your take?
I don't know. I've heard people say, we've still got 1 League One season on our FFP calculation. Which
me.
But I don't know if that is the case or isn't. I assume it probably helps us in a way, because whilst we lost 18 million in that league, that's not a big loss for Championship standards. So effectively, we've got a smaller loss in there than what maybe some teams would expect. But no, truth is, I don't know. I thought it's just related to how much you've lost over a rolling 3-year period. So I assume it doesn't really make any difference, would be my assumption.
We will find out, and I will give you a very definitive, long-winded answer. Well, I won't, but I know a man who will, and we'll get that sorted very, very soon. Guys, thank you, everybody, for watching this latest Blue Monday podcast. I think we're going into our season reviews, which will be a load of fun, and you can relive some fun moments. And we'll try and put an interesting new spin on all of that good stuff. Keep your eyes peeled for plenty of content through the summer as well. We're a work in progress on that, but we will keep you all in the loop. Apologies, I can see a million questions there that we didn't get to, but we've gone over the hour as well. Last word from you, Seb?
Please, God, no emergency podcast in the next 7 days.
Oh, God. It would be, wouldn't it? And
it would be, yeah, it would be. The klaxon would go out and we'd all turn it down and say we're too busy.
Let's be honest as well. If it's Brighton, it'd be in the next few days. Nobody wants to see that podcast, Joe.
Got Super Kieran McKenna.
Yeah, and I'll go from saying the podcast we never thought we'd ever get to make to the podcast we really bloody don't want to make. So, let's hope for some... Everybody stay calm and keep calm, and let's hope for some... just no news in terms of our wonderful manager. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We will see you very soon on the Blue Monday podcast.